you think about Father's Day, it's not necessarily a emotionally neutral thing. Many of you guys here today might be thinking about, what was my father like? What was that relationship like? And it might bring up great memories. It could bring up some terrible memories. It's the power of a father that regardless if you were a good one, a bad one, an indifferent one, a present one, an absent one, you left a mark. You created something. You created emotion. You created feeling. You created a safe space, or you created a space that you wish you never were in. But it's the power of the Father. It's the power of a man. It's a power that you hold as a man or a husband or a father today. That's the power that you hold. Whether you like it or not, it's the power you have. And so, getting to speak on Father's Day, I think it's an incredible blessing. But I also understand that it's a little bit difficult. Because no matter where you are today, no matter your story, no matter what's going on, you think about your father and you have emotions. They come up. Some of you may be in here today and be like, I had the greatest dad ever, and that's awesome. And some of you today might be like, man, I wish my dad was around ever. Some of you here might not have your father around anymore. Whatever it is, wherever your story is, Father's Day is a neat thing. I think it's incredibly powerful to be a father. As somebody who has 3 of them, it is the most difficult, but oh my goodness, the best thing that's ever happened to my life. And so today, I get the honor and privilege to talk about having a heart for the house and what that means and what can happen in the life of a father and all those that he's connected to. And so I want to paint a picture for you. I want to show you kind of what's going on in the heart and the lives of a young man, a couple young men that are growing up. There'll be boys, and then there'll be little cowboys, and then there'll be little warriors, and then there'll be kings, and then there'll be sages. They're going to walk this journey as men. And I'm talking about my 2 sons. My 2 sons, every time I talk to them, it's the funniest thing in the world. Sometimes I just lose my mind because I'm like, oh my goodness, you can't just punch holes in the wall. Like the other day, I had actually it was a while ago, but I was like, man, it's quiet in here, and I go and I'm like, where is our youngest son, Luca? I'm like, where is he at? I don't see him. And I was like, oh no, this is not a good thing. When it goes quiet in the house, you guys know, parents know, if it's quiet, there's a problem. And so I'm going looking around, and I'm looking, and I see him, and I find him, and he's hiding. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. And I was like, oh, okay, what did you do? What did you do? And I go behind. He's got like this big slide in like their playroom, and I go behind the slide, and I'm like, what did you do over here? This is just a massive hole in the wall, and there's a hammer laying on the ground. And I was like, how did you get this? What happened? How'd you make this big giant hole? And not me. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it was you. Pretty sure. My deductive reasoning skills aren't the greatest, but I'm pretty sure it was you. And so it's just a highlight of what it's like in the mind of a boy. It's a little bit chaotic. It's a little bit crazy. We need to smash holes. We need to break stuff. We need to blow things up. And so I want to show you guys, both as men and the females in the auditorium, I want to show you a little bit of a peek behind the veil of what it looks like, sounds like to be a man, to see the whole journey from boyhood to manhood. And hopefully my goal here is for 2 things, because I see this all day long. When we have marriage counseling or we are administering it to somebody, this is always the case, is that the problem within the relationship happens from 2 things. Is that the man doesn't fully understand who he is, his role, and what his purpose is in this world. And the wife or the significant other is on the journey along with this person, trying to figure them out while they're trying to figure themselves out. And so it creates a lot of tension, it creates a lot of frustration, and it creates a lot of turmoil. And I've seen a lot of relationships go the wrong direction because of very simple things. Things that I hope to uncover and speak to in this. And so I want to pose this question here, that as men, why are the desires of our heart so far away from the original design we had as boys, right? You think of my two kids. When I ask them, what do you guys want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? What do you guys like? What do you guys like doing? They're like punching bad guys in the face all day long, every single day. That's all they want to do, punch bad guys in the face. They want to be Spider-Man. They want to be Batman. They want to jump off the roof. They want to save the damsel in distress. I remember when the first day that we brought our daughter home, Gia, our two boys, I think they were 3 and 2 at the time, or 3 and 1 at the time, and we laid her on the ground, and I remember both the boys, they hover over her, and they're getting down over the top of her, and I was like, please don't squish her. And they're like, just having a conversation with themselves. They don't even know I'm there. And they're like, Luca, or Bray, our oldest, looks at Luca and he says, we will fight all the bad guys for you. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I was looking for, right? And so, and I'm like, they're 3 and 1. We don't talk about like beating people up or fighting or punching people. Like, I'm not like the most aggressive person in the world. And so I'm like, where does that come from? And it comes from a wilderness, a wild that's in the heart of a man, the heart of a boy. You think about, as you were kids, anytime that you went out as a boy to play, where did you go, right? You went into the river, you went into a field, you went wherever it was, and you picked up what? A stick. That's not just a stick, that's a bazooka, right? That's a handgun, that's a sword, right? That you're going to defeat the enemy forces, push them back until they cry for mercy, right? And that's the heart of a young man. That's the heart of an older man. It's just suppressed. It's pushed back. It's driven down because somewhere along the line between trying to make rent, trying to put food on the table, trying to figure out your relationship with your wife, your significant other, trying to figure out how to lead your kids, how to figure out how to not be so angry, how to figure out how to not yell at your kids, how to figure out how to do everything that you're supposed to do as a man, learn how to change a tire, learn how to put gas in an all-terrain vehicle, figure out how to do all these things. And somewhere along the line, that boy gets suppressed. That desire, that wildness at heart gets pushed back. And it falls victim to the weight of this world. And so I want to speak to 3 things that I think are actively missing and that are a giant problem in our current society, in our church as a whole, in our city, in our nation, and in our world. And it's these 3 things here that are going to lead us and guide us as men going forward. And I hope that this spells out for both men and women how exactly a man is wired and how you are to address them and move them forward as men in this world. And so there's 3 things. They are identity, mission, and purpose. And we will hit each one of these along the way. But I want to look at a few things here. I'm pull out my phone so that way I can bring you along on the journey. It says that in Proverbs 4:23 that we should be looking to guard our heart, for everything we do flows from it, right? Now, it's a very easy scripture to look over. It's a very easy scripture to be like, okay, that sounds soft, right? You're like, yeah, okay, that sounds like for me when I read this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's meant for women. That's for the girls, right? But know that this one's coming out of Proverbs, right? Okay, this is David instructing. And it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And he's speaking directly to the heart of a man. He's speaking directly to it. He's saying, you better look out. You better watch. You better pay attention. You better understand the condition of your heart, because everything you do from this stage forward, whether it's being a king, whether it's leading, whether it's having a wife, whether it's having kids, you will do everything out of the abundance of your heart. Everything that flows into it and out of it is got to be guarded, or else you're in for a world of hurt. And so we look at this from the standpoint of, okay, what does this mean from today's standpoint? What do we need to know? How is this transitioning? And I think there's a great quote by Thoreau here. They'll throw it up on there for you. But he sums it up like this. He says, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Ladies, if you've ever dealt with a good amount of men, you can probably pick up on this. You can probably feel this. Think about the role of your own father. Think about anybody that's played a fatherly role in your life. Think about anybody that's been a little bit absent, that's been a little bit quiet, that's been struggling in one form or another. You could probably lump them into this category, that they live in this mass of men that lead lives of quiet desperation. Now, why is that? Why is that? You got to think about it. If you're a man in this room, you got to think about that. Is that me? Do I live a life where I'm reserved, where I don't want to talk about my feelings, where I don't want to say anything, I don't want to get out of line, I don't want to cause any problems? Do we live a life suppressed, where we're afraid to let that inner child out, where we're afraid to bring our sword out? Right, where we're afraid to charge the gates? Do we live a life where we're just like, I'm just going to take what life gives me? I'm good enough. I'm comfortable. This is fine. And so I think a lot of this happens from this core point here of our first of three of the identity, mission, and purpose. The identity of a man. The identity of a man is something so powerful, the identity of who he is. Because if he doesn't understand who he is, he has no ability to lead anybody around him. If you can't figure out who you are, there is so many problems that you're going to cast onto your wife, your girlfriend, anybody around you, your children, anybody along the line, because you can't figure out who you are. And so I started thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, what does it mean, God? What is the identity of a man? What does that mean? And I want you to read along with you guys. And I want you to pay attention. I put some numbers in this scripture so you guys can kind of check it out. So it says in Genesis 1:26, 1:27, right? This is a point where God is talking about how he made man. And he's saying this. Then God said, number one, okay, pay attention. 1, let us make mankind in our image. Number 2, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds of the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, over all the creatures that move along the ground. Now, number 3, so God created mankind in his own image. 4, in the image of God he created them. Starting to get repetitive. 5, male and female he created them. Right? In 2 verses, you see that God understands what the enemy is trying to do to a man. If you think about anything, men, what is the number one fear that you have? What is the number one thing that speaks to you at night? What is the thing that wakes you up in the middle of the night? What's the thing that causes you to not come to church? What's the thing that causes you to not go to a city group? What's the thing that causes you to not engage with your wife when she's in a bad mood? What's the number one thing that causes you to not engage your children when they're getting out of line? What's the number one thing that causes you to not engage with your boss when you know that you should be reaping the benefits of a promotion, or what prevents you from taking that next step towards entrepreneurship and opening your own company and doing your own thing? It's this driving thought here. Ladies, pay special attention to this. In the heart of a man, the number one doubt, the number one question that a man asks himself daily, weekly, monthly is, do I have enough? Do I have what it takes? Can I do what has been called to me to do? What God has placed in my heart, can I do it? Can I be obedient? Can I give above what I've been thinking that I should give? Can I speak to my wife in a way that builds her up? Can I move our lives forward? Can I lead us out of poverty? Can I get us out of debt? Can I move this church forward? Can I speak to the hearts of men and move them in a direction that's going to bring them fulfillment and longevity and lead their families, their wives, their children into the promised land that God has for them? It is that question there that is fundamental to a man of, do I have what it takes? And then on the backside of that is you find the natural reaction to that question of hiding, right? And so you look at this spelled out in the testing of Jesus, right? So God knew. He said 5 times in 2 scriptures, you are the Son of God. You are made in my likeness. You are a child of God. He's like, I'm telling you 5 times here because I know you're going to forget it. I know that the enemy's number one tactic is going to be to cause doubt to come into your heart that you aren't enough, that you are not good enough. You are not able to lead people. You are not a good father. You are not a good husband. You will not take your family out of debt. You will stay in bondage forever. It is that drives the man forward. And so we look at this in Matthew 4:1. This is, to give context, this is a stage where Jesus comes out of the water after being baptized. The Holy Spirit descends on him like a dove. And it says that the Holy Spirit leads him into the wilderness. Not the devil, not his own ambition, not his desires. The Holy Spirit leads him into the wilderness. Pastor Chris preached on this, I think, 8 years ago. It was one of the first sermons that I actually heard when I was in the back, half hungover. I actually heard this one. And he talked about that the wilderness is not a bad place. The wilderness is a necessary place. It's a place of growth. It's a place of movement. It's a place where you can understand who you are, be tested, and move forward. And so he says here, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, if you are the Son of God, if you are the Son of God. What does he say in the 5 times in 2 scriptures? You are the Son of God. You are a child of God. That is your identity. I have created you. You are mine. But here, the very first thing after Jesus is filled with the Holy Spirit and put into the wilderness, the devil said, this is my one opportunity. This is my one chance. If I don't get him here, I'm not going to be successful. He knows this. He knows that he's going to come into the beginning of something because once it gets rolling, once it gets momentum, once it starts moving forward, it can't be stopped. And so he knows this. And so every man, wherever you are right now, you understand this. Anytime you are starting something new, when you are the person that is the end of a generational curse, when you are the first one to not be an alcoholic, the first one to not be addicted to drugs, the first one to be there and be an active father for your children, you know this because this temptation comes to you daily. The tempter came to him and he said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. The devil knows this. And men, I don't think we know this enough. I don't think we know the game plan. For a group of people who love sports, a nation that is built on sports, a nation who you could say probably loves sports like a god. It's funny how little we know about the game. The game that the devil wants to play with you. The game of, how do I defeat you? How do I get you off course? How do I make sure that nobody in your lineage ever does anything for the kingdom? How do I do that? It's right here. It's this game plan. He knows, it's spelled out. And God knows it. That's why he told you 5 times in 2 scriptures, you're a son of God. He's going to come in every single day. Anytime you try and make something new, anytime you try and move something forward, anytime you try and put your hand to something that's going to make a difference in the kingdom, this thought will come up. If you are the Son of God, if that's your identity, if that's your Father, if you can do that, he's going to sow that seed, right? And so the problem here isn't necessarily the tempter. It's those that are being tempted. It's those that want to believe this lie. Those that start to believe that after so many times of failing, so many times of hitting a roadblock, so many times of trying and failing, so many times of trying to lead your house, and then your wife comes to you and just beats you down and says, you're not who I thought you were. You're not going to be as good as a father as I thought you were. You're not going to be as good as my dad. You're not going to amount to anything. You're not going to drive this forward, right? The more you hear that, the more that this lie starts to become reality in your own head because you start to believe it. And so as men, I think we need to understand that this is one of the most important things to taking ourselves out of where we are and moving ourselves forward and leading our spouses, our children in a way that they need to be led, that they desire to be led, is that you have to understand your identity, that you are a child of God. You are created in his likeness. It says, in Christ you can do all things. And so why don't we ever believe that? Why don't we ever go forward? Yeah, I could try again. I could do that. That's no problem. So let me let you know, Siri, that, listen here, devil. I hear you trying to speak. So he's trying to cast doubt in my mind, right? He said, if you can speak, hold these people's attention, right? And so that fundamental question always comes out. Do I have what it takes? Do I have enough? Am I man enough, right? And so you see this throughout your life, right? And if you are, I want you to take this journey, okay? Think about yourselves as young boys, as young men, right? Say you're 6, 7, 8 years old. Probably the first fundamental thoughts, processes, and emotions that you remember from being a child is somewhere around that 6, 7, 8 years old. For many of us that had a present father, that have had an active home, this is what it would look like. That you had somebody that was around that could contribute to your safety, right? You were a boy, you were functioning in this role, and you were moving everything forward, and you are saying as a boy, you're like, the other day, actually literally yesterday, the Holy Spirit was speaking to me. I took my boys to the park, and my oldest son got up real high on one of the slides, and he said, Dad, you think I could jump down from this? And I was like, that's actually kind of high. But I was like, yeah, you could do it. You could do it, man. No big deal. And he's like, I don't think I can. I don't think I can. And I was like, no, just do it. Just go fast. And he's like, okay, I could do this. And so he jumps. And he jumps, and he falls, and he like lands, and he crashes. And I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I did it. I did it. He's like, I can do it. And he went back up, and he did it again. And then he goes to his brother. He says, Luca, you come do it. You could do it too. He's like, don't go as high, but you could do it too. And he does it. And he's like, Daddy, I could do it. I could do it. And so you see here, in that active role of a father, you are fulfilling two things that a man needs, right? He's going to have two things that drive his life forward. It is a search for love and a search for validation. Those two things that are core and fundamental to every man. And it usually happens in the stage of being a boy or a young adult, that constantly this life will challenge you, and constantly the devil will come into the lives of children. Don't think he doesn't have them in mind, because he's going to this kid, he's going to my sons, and he's saying, you can't jump from there. That's too high. You're not strong enough to do that. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't work power tools. And as you develop as a man, as you continue to do these trials of manhood, if you don't have somebody there that is going to show you unconditional love and give you the affirmation that you are enough, that you are capable, that you can do what you need to do as a man, you will live a life without that understanding that you are enough. If you take a look at people that grew up in an active father home, Now, I'm not saying that they're always awesome. I'm not saying that they're wonderful people. But by and large, men that come from a solid relationship with their father have an increased amount of ability, confidence, and ableness to do things that transition outside of just jumping off of a playground, right? They lead their wives better. They are usually better dads. They are usually better at their job. They are usually better business people. Why? Because they've been validated. They know that they are enough. They understand that since a boy, as they did trial after trial after trial, and were told, hey, attaboy, nice job. That's what I'm talking about. I told you could do it. They just increase in confidence and they move forward. Now, on the flip side, if you look at a man who grew up with an absent father, an alcoholic father, a drug addict father, a father who was never around, you will find the exact opposite. You will find that those children are constantly yearning. They're constantly striving. They're constantly looking from validation. And for the ladies, you will have found this. Think about probably your first boyfriend or your second boyfriend. You will see in the characteristics of these young men that didn't come from a validating father, that their desire was cast onto you. Right? The desire for validation of a father, when it is gone and it is removed and that ability to go back to the father is no longer there, they're going to turn to the world. They're going to say, okay, girlfriend, I am going to look for your validation. I am going to look for you to validate me as a man. So when I do things and you don't validate me, you're going to have problems in your relationship. That's probably why he's an ex-boyfriend and not a current boyfriend. And so you look at these things and they play out, and you can see these even in people that maybe are your husband or significant other, the father of your children. You will see somebody with a deep wound from this stage of life. They take that with them and they carry it on to you as the wife. And so as a wife, it becomes burdensome. It becomes heavy. It's hard to understand and it's hard to figure out because in your mind, you're like, I need you to lead us forward. And in his mind, he's like, I don't feel like I have what it takes. But I'm not going to tell you that, so I'm going to get in an argument with you. I'm going to argue about something stupid, about something dumb, or I'm going to do something else that most men do, is we are going to run into the wilderness and we are going to hide because you've seen our nakedness. You've discovered us. That is a fundamental fear of most men of, I don't want to be discovered. I don't want to be shown to the world that I am not what I think I am, that I'm a poser. And so you see this, and you see the withdrawal that comes from it. And you see that in the Garden of Eden. When sin is brought into the garden, Adam and Eve, they are doing what? They're doing what? They're hiding. They're gone. They're gone. They're ashamed. They're ashamed of their nakedness, right? They're ashamed that God has now seen them, their true self, their naked identity. And so that's why men don't go to church. That's why men don't go to city groups. That's why men don't go to things where you have to stand on the other side of a man and talk about your feelings. Because you hate it. Because you know why? Because we fear that that man will know our secret, that we are not enough, that we are not capable, that we are not a man. Think about this, men. When you go to, say the mechanic, right? You go get an oil change, or you go get your tires swapped. You get some new brakes put on, right? The guy comes out. He's like, hey, we got some problems with your calipers. We got to change out your rotors. We got to do this replacement. We got to do this, that, and the other. If you think about what you do, be honest. If you're not competent in this area, what do you always do? You're like, oh yeah, I thought it could be. Yeah, I definitely thought it could be the calipers. Yeah, for sure. You know, I was gonna do that last week, but it's just easier if you just do it. You know, I was gonna do it in the garage, but nah, it's cool. You can do it. Yeah, I just don't have time. And so you see this, and it's funny, but there's a problem there because you're seeing your nakedness. You're seeing your weakness, and another man is seeing it also, right? And so this is why it's so crucial as the role of a wife to understand where your husband is. And in order to understand where he is, you got to understand his past. Many times when we get into marriage counseling or things of that nature, it's mind-boggling to find out how little people actually know about their past. Like the significant other that they're about to marry or has been married to, they're like, oh, I didn't know that you and your dad had such a problem. I didn't know that he was never around. I never knew that you felt like that. I never knew that you had such problems at night going to sleep because you wrestle with these things every single day. I had no idea that you feel that every single time we get in an argument and this relationship feels like it's going to collapse, that you feel, I'm just like my father. I'm going to let this thing break. We're going to end up in a divorce. We're going to have problems. It's crazy how many relationships this transpires in, and it's because of the husband's inability to talk about it, because he doesn't want to be seen. He doesn't want to be naked. He doesn't want his wife, the person who's the most important person in his whole life, to see him as he truly is. It's impossible for us to get over that. It feels like it. And so I think it's so important that you know as men and you know as women that this one thing, that men avoid places that they feel they may be exposed. And so, ladies, let me help you out here. Anybody that's struggling with your man, I hope this helps you out. Me and my wife have been talking all week. We're like, man, I hope everybody hears this. Is that men avoid the places they feel they may be exposed. And so, where do we feel exposed as men? We feel exposed in our relationships. We feel exposed when we're doing things that are by social standards are considered manly things, building, repairing, doing anything that we feel that we should be doing based on the roles of movies. Anytime we feel that we are not going to be enough, we're going to avoid that, right? We're going to avoid it like the plague. So when we get in an argument with our wives, we're going to avoid that. We're going to withdraw. We're going to hide. When we are not feeling like we're moving forward at our job, what are we going to do? We're going to coast. We're going to check out. We're not going to be present. What are we going to do when our daughter is of age to be a young woman and we don't know how to handle that? And so we withdraw. We don't know how to talk to her. So we just let her sit in her room even though we know that there's turmoil. What do? We withdraw. And so this is a challenge and a little bit of awareness for both men and women that we need to check on ourselves and see where we are. Are we avoiding things? Are we moving away from things that we should be engaging with? I think this is a core fundamental thing, is that piece of your identity of you are a child of God, you are called, you are equipped, you are qualified, and you have been validated by the one and the supreme Father. And so that's where our story needs to divert, is that a lot of times men in this world will continue down this path of feeling not enough. They will coast. They will live a life where, as Thoreau said it, you lead a life of quiet desperation. And so I want to lead you as we go past identity and into our mission. Identity, mission, purpose. Identity, mission, purpose. Say it with me. Identity, mission, purpose. Identity, mission, purpose. These are three things that I think a man doesn't think about enough. These are three things that a wife doesn't think about for her man enough. Is that every man needs these three things. They need to have a strong identity. They need to know who they are. They need to know what they're doing, and they need to know why they're doing it. They need to move this forward, and if they don't, they're going to withdraw because they feel actively unengaged. They're not moving in the direction that they want to go, and they feel challenged, and they feel not enough, so they're going to withdraw. So they need to work on identity, who you are. I am a child of God. I am called, I am equipped, I am capable of doing all things through Christ who strengthens me. I am able to do this, right, because of me being fathered by the ultimate Father. That is my identity. Now, the next thing is that mission. This is something that a lot of men lack right now. Every person that is probably in this age group, that is in this room or online, they are probably struggling with this portion of it, is that they do not have a mission. They do not have something that they should be attacking. They don't have something that they're actively engaged in that is moving things forward that is greater than just them. For an example, they don't have a job that is fulfilling. They don't have something that tests them. They don't have a mentor which is speaking challenging circumstances into their life and saying, attaboy, great job for doing that. Nice job. Way to move that forward. Way to pray. Way to take care of your wife. Way to take care of your children. They don't have that. They don't have that mission. And so when you look at, ladies, if you look at a man, if you are in a relationship with any type of man right now, and you feel like he is disengaged, you feel that he is checked out from either the home, his job, or your relationship, it is probably because of this here, is that he lacks a true mission. Now, what is a mission? A mission could be a whole bunch of things. If you think about it from the standpoint of the life of David, a mission is more in the classical sentiment of a mission. It is going out, taking land, conquering another group of people, taking their heads back, putting them on spikes, and showing them off in front of everybody, right? That is the biblical understanding of a mission from the standpoint of David, right? Now, as men, we can't go do that. That is frowned upon in normal society. Now, what we can do is we can dominate at our job, right? We can be the first one in, the last one out. We can challenge ourselves in something that is very, very difficult in an area that we don't feel qualified and succeed. And once we do succeed, we're going to take on another challenge, and we're going to take on another challenge, and we're going to increase in confidence. We are going to speak to you, our wives, better because we are now feeling that we have a mission complete, that we have to be driven by this mission. We have to be moving forward. And so, men, if you think about your lives right now, are you happy? Do you feel disengaged? Do you feel like you're just coasting? Do you feel like you're being challenged? Do you feel like you have a mentor in your life? Do you feel like there's somebody speaking into your future? If not, you lack a mission. You need to find one. Now, a mission, how do we understand what our mission needs to be? How do we apply that to our lives? Well, you have to understand your purpose there. And so that's where we go back to identity, mission, and purpose. Right? Our purpose has to be something that outlives us. It has to be something that is bigger than us. It has to be something that our whole life is built around. A mission, say, for Pastor Chris, a purpose for Pastor Chris is that he wants to see the advancement of the kingdom through the church. He wants to see lives changed. He wants to see people saved. He wants to see people healed. He wants to see the movement of this church through this earth impregnate more of this city, move forward, drive back the walls of the enemy, right? That is a purpose for him, that drives him forward. Now, his mission is dependent on his stage of life, right? And so you have to know, in order to determine what your mission is, you have to go first to, what do I need my purpose to be? What does that need to be established? And then you have to look at, where am I in my life? What is my current job, right? So let me give you a scenario. So for me, my job, you can look at purpose. Okay, my purpose is to see people engage with Christ and move their life forward on a daily basis. And I want that for everyone because I know what it's like to live without Christ and I know what it's like to live with him. Living with him is so much better. My whole life has been utterly changed in the last 10 years from going from unsaved to saved. And there's no giant thing that happened. It's just said, God, I surrender to you. I give all the things up to you and I want you to lead and steward my life. Right? And so that is my purpose, to engage people for Christ and let the gospel speak through me, through my actions, through everything that I do, through my work. And so through my work, I'm able to speak to people that are in different life spheres. They're in different departments. They're in different worlds. They're in different states. They're in different countries. And I get to talk to them, and it's incredible because I get to talk to them about things that are work-related, but also you start to develop relationships and you start to speak Christ into them. You start to be able to talk to them about things that are a little bit more permanent and a little less temporary, right? And you start to see that, and that's an incredible experience. So that is my mission right now, is that through my work, I am able to fulfill my purpose. Now, in 5-10 years, will that change? Yes. Right? I might be in a different position of influence with people. I might be speaking to more people. I might be talking with more young men. My children are going to be a little bit older. I'm going to have more influence with their friends. That is a new mission for me. That is a new thing, but it's still functioning within the same overall purpose. So you see that? As you develop, and the earlier the stages, the better. A great representation of this is one of my best buds here, Malachi. He's just, oh my goodness. Ladies, if you were looking for a man, he's not looking. He's not looking because he's a man of God, but my goodness, that's a good dude. But he's a young man, and he has it not figured out, but he's going in the right direction. He understands what's important. He understands how to build his life on something that is solid. Whereas if I was at 21 years old, I was building myself up on clubs and girls and drinks and alcohol and passing out. That's what I built my life on. And it obviously didn't work out, right? So what's going on here, right, is that he has his fundamental purpose spelled out at a very early age, and he is able to engage in a mission that is different than mine. He's able to engage at an earlier age, develop himself and those around him from a younger age, and have a larger impact on the kingdom, right? And so as you think of, where am I now? How old am I? What am I doing for my job? What am I doing for my family? What am I doing for everything that I touch? How can my mission, what I do on a daily basis, impact my purpose, the thing that's going to be the cornerstone of my life, the thing that people are going to remember me for, the things that people are going to speak about at my funeral? My purpose needs to be built out throughout the missions of my life. I need to understand those things. And so that's our final piece there, is that we have to understand that purpose. We have to understand what that is. Now, a lot of times you can feel like you got a purpose, and then you can find out that your purpose was not strong enough, that your purpose was temporary, that your purpose was set on fire, right? That a lot of times us as men, we can think that my purpose is, my purpose is to be a good husband. My purpose is to be a good dad. My purpose is to be this, that, and the other, right? But we have to have something that is so strong that each and every day, no matter what happens, no matter what comes against you, no matter what transpires in your life, no matter what the enemy throws at you, that purpose has to be so strong that you can never put it down. That you can never stop thinking about it, that you can never stop developing it, that you can never stop pushing towards it. Because if you have a purpose and all of a sudden your life starts to get too hard and you're like, I'm going to give up on that one, I'm going to pick a new one. That ain't your purpose. That is not it. That is something that is far too weak. It has to be something that when you wake up every single morning, you're like, I am going to chase this with every fiber of my being. No matter what I do, no matter where I go, no matter who I speak to, my mission will be reflected and my purpose will be fulfilled. I need that to be our purpose as men, and I need that to drive us forward. So we think of our three things. They are what? Identity, mission, purpose. Again, identity, mission, purpose. These are three things that are fundamental and core to a man, and we need to understand that without these things done and without them done in the correct order, our life falls out of balance. So we recap. We look at our identity. We are a child of God, created in his image. 5 times in two scriptures that God says, this is my child. I have created you. What is the number one tactic of the enemy? The number one tactic of the enemy is to say that you are not who God says you are. That he wants to create doubt in the mind of a man so that he cannot engage the next 2 levels. If a guy cannot understand who he is, it is so hard to wrestle with the thought of what is my mission? And even harder to understand what is my purpose, right? So without the main piece of identity being established, you're going to run into some issues when it comes to what is my mission and what is my purpose. And so I want to speak a little bit about this current series that we're on, Heart for the House. This series that I believe in, that it was drawn up, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. And I want to remind you of a story. There is a story within the Bible that comes in between the story of 2 great people in the Bible. King David. King David, throughout his life, wanted to build God a temple. But throughout his life, he was challenged on all sides. He was always in battle. He was always going against the enemy. He was always being attacked. He was always trying to drive back the enemy forces. And so his life was in turmoil. He understood what his mission was and his purpose was. He really wanted to build God a place for his temple. And God said to him, it's not going to be you. It's not going to be you. It's going to be your son. And so Solomon, his son, understands that this calling, this thing that was a desire of his father's heart, was placed upon him to fulfill. And he says at this moment, he says, God, I want to build you a temple. I want to build your house. I want to build your house. I want to build your house. And what's key here is you have to understand that Solomon is at a place where he could do whatever he wants. He has all the resources, all the gold, everything that you could ever imagine as a man to fulfill something. He could have done anything he wanted to do. And he said, God, I want to build your house. I want to build your temple. And I don't want to do it let's throw up a little shanty and call it good. He's like, I'm going to send letters to this guy that's on the other side of the water to get the very best wood, the wood from Lebanon. I want him to float it down. I want to send men after men, month after month, to go up there, chop down this piece of wood, float it down the river, and bring it to this place to have it put in as the temple. I don't want to go halfway. I want to go all the way. I want to make sure that I build your house accordingly. I want to build your house as best as I possibly can. I want to do everything to make sure that this and every person around this place knows that I build this place for God, that this is his temple, this is his place where his spirit will dwell, and I want to do it, pay attention, I want to do it before I build my own house. I want to do it before I build my own house. I think that's so important because in today's society, it's commonplace. Say, I'm going to take care of me. You get on an airplane, what do they tell you to do when the things drop and you got your kids with you, the things drop, what are you supposed to do first? Put it on you, right? And I think that's right. You should do that. You should definitely do that. As according to FFA certifications, you should do that. But I think that spells out into many parts of today's world that I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to take care of me. I don't want to get into any kind of friendship, whatever relationship with anybody else right now because I'm working on me. I'm working on me. I'm working on me. I don't want to engage in a hard conversation. I don't want to listen to social media that's not believing the same way that I'm believing, so I'm going to curate my own little world, and I'm just going to do me. I'm just going to live my life. I'm going to live it exactly how I want, right? And I'm going to build my house, and I'm going to have my car, and I'm going to have my clothes, and I'm going to have this, that, and the other, and it's all going to be mine. And then, God, you can have what's left over, maybe. Maybe. Right? And so we think about that and we say, I think this is one of the best things in the world because I hear this all the time, people praying, I'm praying, I'm crying. They're like, God, not my will, but your will be done. Not my will. You can take it. And he's like, okay, well, let's give up your car. Oh, no. I got to have my car. He's like, yeah, just buy a little jalopy for $1,000. Oh, no, not my car. I need that car. I need that. Okay, well, why don't you get rid of your house, move into something smaller. Take the extra payment and put it towards the church. Oh, no, God. I need my 6 bedrooms. I need my 4-car garage. I need it. Right? And I'm not saying those are bad things. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that. But I'm saying that you should do it in the correct order. Solomon had a wonderful house, a wonderful place. One of the greatest places you could ever imagine. But he decided that first, I'm going to build the temple. First, I'm going to build his house. First, I'm going to let every person know in this city, and this is a hallmark of leadership skill for all men, that he's not only doing this for God, I think he is, it's a great thing, but he's also showing, he's putting a precedence that everything we do in this city, everything that happens within the gates of these walls, I'm going to make sure that we put God first. I'm going to make sure that this city is a city that worships God. This is going to be a city that knows that we are going to give our first and we are going to give our best. And that everything that we do going forward is going to be driven off of this desire. That I want to see God's kingdom move first, and then I'll take care of myself. Because you understand when you start to give to the kingdom of God, when you start to give the first fruits, when you start to give everything to God and say, God, I don't worship money. I don't worship my job. I don't worship everything that the world worships. I worship you. I build your house. I put my effort into this place because I see the lives that are being changed. I see the children that are in the City Kids that are reaping the benefits of having paid staff that have kids that are oh my God, some of the best teachers I've ever met in the back there that are teaching my sons. And I talk to my kids, and my little Luca, he's 2 years old, and he's got like 4 scriptures down. And he just lists them off. Every single night, him and his brother, they pray. And I'm like, I didn't do that. I wish I did, but it's those guys. It's the girls in the back. It's the teachers. It's the lessons plans. It's the late nights. It's the amount of money that was given to make that place great. It's the amount of people that gave their time to tear down the walls and make it nice in there. It's the amount of effort that people put in to say, hey, I got a busy life. I don't have a lot of resources, but whatever I have, I give it to this church. People like Greg Peck. My goodness, that guy doesn't even live here. He's like 1,000 miles away. And he's one of the best givers we have. He's one of the most faithful people we have. He's one of the first people that if you needed something, he would be there. If you needed a house, he would build you one. It's the type of man he is, and you can see that he is a successful man. By all standards of society, he is a very successful man. But it's because he put God first. You see the same thing in the lives of the Warrens. Mr. Dan Warren, one of the greatest men I've ever seen as far as a father, somebody who stood in the gap from a previous past of not having a marriage that he saw being fruitful, and he said, not today. Both him and his wife, they stood in the gap and they said, it ends today. It ends here. We are going to push our children forward and drive this thing forward and establish that everything we do as a family is going to be God first, us second. And you can see the benefit that comes to their life. You can see the rewards that God has given them through great children, great finances, great ability, great understanding and knowledge of God. And it all comes because they said, God, I submit my heart to you and I put you first. So if you're at a place right now where you're like, God, it's just not working out. It is not penciling. It is not the way that I want it to look. It's not how I see all the Instagram models living their lives, flying to Tahiti and going to Italy. It's not looking like that. You have to look at, well, where do you put God? Do you put him first or do you put him last? Where do you put him? You put him first or you put him last? And so I challenge us as men to lead ourselves, to lead our family, to say, I will stand in the gap. I will have a heart for this house. I will have a heart to move this thing forward. I will have a heart to sow seeds into this place so that we can have more access, more resources for our children, so that when they grow up, they can go and have their own influence with their little friends. That they're going to talk to their little buddies that don't go to church, and then be like, did you know that God loves you? Did you know that you could do all things through Christ who strengthens you? Why are you so sad? Why? Jesus Christ died, hung on the cross, all for you. And they're going to do that because of the seeds that are being sown. There's going to be people that come through this door, and they're going to be like, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't understand why I come into this building on the side of the road in an old warehouse, and I don't know why I'm here, but man, I feel something crazy because our worship team has the resources to help push the Spirit into this atmosphere, to drive things into the hearts of those that sit in these seats. And I hope that you feel it today. Every seed that was sown through the last 20 years, the resources, the ability, the effort that is put in by staff and those that give to this church, you feel it in here today that this church is moving forward, that this church is driving into the city, that the darkness of the city is being pushed back, and the light emitting from this church is starting to move forward. But it can't stop. It can't stop here. It has to be developed, honed, and driven by the men of this church. And you can't do it without those three things. You've got to know your identity. You've got to know your mission. And you've got to know your purpose. Without those three things, you will always feel like you are not enough. You will always feel that you are lacking. You will never be able to pick up something that God has told you to pick up. You will never be able to go into a space that God said to speak to, and you're going to stand there and you're going to say, God, I can't. God, I can't. Because you don't understand who is your Father, what is your mission, and what is your purpose. So, what do we do? What do we do? I think we should put God first. I think He should be the one true thing that we build our life on. You can build your life on anything. You can build your life on your relationship. You can build your life on your children. You can build your life on your finances. You can build your life on your home, your car, whatever. You can build your life on that. That's fine. We'll all burn. We'll all go away. God is everlasting. God will stay there forever. He's the only one that is there for you. In the darkness, when you are alone, when there is nobody around, it's not your wife, it's not your husband, it's not your daughter, it's not your kids, it's not your mom, it's not your dad. Nobody is with you. God is with you. God is the only one that will be with you at the beginning, during, and at the end. So why do we put Him last? Why do we put Him last? So it's a challenge. It's a challenge to us as a church, as men, as leaders, as people trying to drive something forward in the heart of this city. We need to take a moment here and say, this is what we're going to stand for.